If you want to know which MLB games you should be playing tonight on the 14-game slate, well, you've come to the right place. This is First Pitch Live here on the WagerTalk TV YouTube channel. We got 4 games that we'll definitely be talking about as the Blue Jays and the Yankees, Houston at Atlanta, Cards and the A's and Detroit taking on Texas. Those are the 4 games that have been slated by our experts to break down. We'll have best bets and breakdowns in those ones, but the live chat going to be rocking with us all along the way. And with this slate, man, I'm sure we're going to be having some questions lining up on how to bet it tonight. Joining me, I got Adam Trigger and I got Steve Merril holding it down here on tax day. So hopefully, guys, we can get some winners to maybe offset everyone just draining their bank accounts. And we were talking about it before the show. At least it's all going to good use, right, folks? Right, folks? Yeah, sense the sarcasm at all. No, Steve, we're not gonna get into that too bad. Start getting people fired up here. So, guys, before I get myself canceled on the show here on a Monday, let's start breaking down some of these games and take a look at
the memo, man. Talk about that stuff, Dan. Go check your memos.
Hey, all of us losing money.
Although I don't think there's anything controversial about that, right?
Yeah, no.
I was going to say that might be 99.9% lock. That's a 5% best bet right there.
Every American agrees that taxes suck. They just are. They just suck.
Hey guys, no, seriously, I saw a poll on that last week, and it was pay too much, pay just right, or pay underpay, and like 2 to 3% said they pay too little in taxes. I swear to you, there was a poll out there, so it's 96, 97 to be mathematically correct. I misspoke when I said 99.9. But that also might have had a 3%. Don't most of the polls have a 3% margin of error, though? So now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it was 100%. That was the error margin. But no, seriously, I saw that.
Now we're really going to get in trouble that we're talking about polls, Steve. All right, let's move on here.
Blue
Jays and Yankees. And Trig, you got this one for us, man. It's already actually the second game or the second series between these two clubs here, but it'll be the first time that the Yankees are going to be seeing Chris Bassett on the mound opposing them. And if you go back to last year, yes, I know it was last year, never a future indicator, but over 14 innings against the Yanks, didn't allow 1 run for Mr. Bassett. You think he continues his dominance as he's taking on the pinstripes tonight?
I mean, I don't know if he'll be that dominant, but I do think he gives the Blue Jays a really good chance to win this game. I think it's a tough spot for the Yankees. Talked about this a little bit on WagerTalk today, where, you've got a team that they blew a lead yesterday. They had multiple 2-run leads. They end up losing to the Guardians in extras. And, they played a doubleheader on Saturday. So you want to talk about, tough spot having to, travel to a different city and play a road game tonight. You had a doubleheader on Saturday, an extra inning game on Sunday. You used a whole bunch of relievers, 3 relievers for 4 high leverage innings on Saturday, 5 different relievers yesterday. And now you get to turn around and not only play another game, not only play another road game, but play a team in the Blue Jays that's played you well the last couple of seasons, and I think is just as much of a contender in the American League as the Yankees are. So, this is not really a forgiving spot here. And then, Dan, throw in the fact that the Yankees just took 2 of 3 from the Blue Jays in the Bronx last week, and it sets up a little bit of a revenge angle. So I think all of those things, kind of, lean me toward the Blue Jays from just an intangible perspective there. As far as the matchup's concerned, you can't go back to last season and say, okay, well, Bassett dominated the Yankees over 2 starts, so he's going to do it again here. But I do think it's still worth bringing up. 14.2 scoreless innings against the Yankees across 2 starts, 19 strikeouts for Bassett. Earlier in the season, and I've been seeing this a lot, sometimes the first couple starts of the year especially for veteran guys, tend to be almost extended spring. And so I'm not going to put as much stock into Bassett's struggles for the first 2 starts because he came out last week and pitched great. 6.2 innings, gave up 1 run in a win over the Mariners. If you look at his historic splits, home road, the home splits are much better. And of course, last week was his first start at Rogers Center because we talked about that big road trip that the Blue Jays started their season on, having to go to Tampa Bay, to Houston, and to the Yankees. So I think the Blue Jays are still a little bit undervalued because of that. Like, this is a team that's 8-8, but this is a team that already had to endure arguably their toughest road trip of the season. 10 days against three of the sort of, top teams in their league. So, yeah, I just think it's a good spot for the Jays. Coming home on the homestand so far, they're 4-2, which I fully expected them to play better on the homestand, and they have. And you go back to the Yankees and sort of their bullpen situation. Luis Gil, who's going to start for the Yankees, tremendous stuff, has the upside of like a front end of the rotation guy in terms of his strikeout stuff and what he can be when he's on. But Dan, he's not super economical, and I think that's what gets him here. The fact that he runs counts up, he'll get his strikeouts, but he'll also walk guys. Hasn't pitched past the fifth inning yet this year, so I do think we're going to see some Yankees relievers. And if you're going to give me Bassett at home, -110, fresher bullpen, I just think like where these two teams are, I've got to side with the Blue Jays there because at no matter what, I certainly don't have the Yankees ahead of the Blue Jays. I'd say that these two teams I have them power rated about even. So all of that considered, I'm on the Blue Jays, -110, 4% client play for me.
Wow, 4% play here right at the top from Mr. Adam Trigger. And guys, we're seeing kind of split action on this game. We'll call it a consensus -115, but there's as low as -107s out there. So definitely shop around. Hop below in the comments and let us know how you're looking to bet that Blue Jays and Yankees game. But I would argue one of the better games on this nice big slate tonight. Speaking of some of the better games and some of the better teams, it wouldn't be a big game breakdown, Steve, if we didn't talk about St. Louis and Oakland. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, really, I saw you and Joe Ranieri over the weekend were talking about, like, the A's can't keep this up, right? Their start is all about this pitching, and it's kind of throwing logic in the face. So how are you looking to bet this one, and just thoughts on the start for, I guess, both of these teams this season?
Yeah, we got to mix it up so people don't think it's the college basketball show, because Adam was always digging deep into those added games for college hoops, and I do the primetime matchups, and Adam did the big matchup between the Jays and Yankees, so I thought I'd dig a little deeper and talk about the Oakland A's. But hey, look, Oakland's actually not the bottom feeder in this game. The Cardinals have gone 2-5 straight up their last 7, and like you said, Dan, Oakland is now 6-2 their last 8. They won another series against not my Washington Nationals. In fact, they have now won 3 straight series for the first time since 2021. It had been 3 years since they'd won 3 series in a row, and they did it in comeback fashion yesterday. And yes, the offense got going with that comeback. They weren't hitting the ball well, but did manage 7 runs. But look, the 4 games before that, they scored 2 runs or less and somehow managed to go 2-2 because their pitching has been strong. Not sure that's going to be the case with the start of tonight. Tripley was terrible in 2 of his 3 outings. In fact, 2 of his 3 starts this year, he gave up, 13 runs in 13 innings. He had the one nice start in between against, who was it? I believe it was the Tigers. No, it wasn't the Tigers. Who did he pitch? Let me check my notes here to see who he just went up against when he had that good outing a couple games ago. Red Sox, a team that you would expect to be a good offensive team. He did hold the Red Sox to 1 run on 7 innings, but in those starts against the Rangers and the Guardians, he gave up 11 runs in 11 innings. This is a guy that's 34 years old. I think it's in the back half of his career. And he's lucky he's on Oakland because I don't think he'd be in many other rotations. So I do look for things to start to turn. But the bigger angle I wanted to talk about in this game is just fading the A's at home, especially in game 1s of a series. I went back and looked. They just beat the Nationals in game 1, of course, on Friday. But keep in mind, they were favored. They've been an underdog in every other one of these game 1s, I believe, since last season. They won their season opener last year, too. We discount that. They weren't really moving to Vegas yet. They had a little momentum for opening day. But in between that opening day win last year and that win as a favorite against Washington on Friday night, they had gone 7-21, 25% in game 1s at home since last season. That would equate to -300 on the money line. So you'd have to be getting +300 to break even. So yes, there is value with the Cardinals here at -180 or less. Most of those losses have been by 2 runs or more. Some of them have been blowouts. In fact, before that Nationals win, they lost their first 2 first game home games this season by 17-0 combined scores. Got shut out in both of them. So definitely wouldn't talk you off of bringing this price down to -1.5 pick 'em or playing half a unit each, getting it around -140 at -1. But I like St. Louis here. I like fading Oakland whenever possible. I'm not a believer in this current win streak, 6-2 straight up their last 8. They've gone under in every game but 1, and that was that comeback offensive win yesterday. The under has gone 6-0-1 in the other 7 games. So I do agree with the money move that we've seen on the under in this game. It opened 8, it's down to 7.5, but St. Louis and under the only way I would play this. The A's have not found anything that's different. That's like you said, they have been getting good pitching, and the bullpen has been stronger than expected. That's been the difference. The offense is still not good. They're hitting 208 on the season. They're averaging less than 3 runs a game, to put that in perspective. And now with a bad starter on the mound tonight, I think this could get ugly for Oakland.
Yeah, and it's looking like, probably a lot of people looking to keep riding this Oakland A's train as they possibly can. So you might even be able to get a better price closer to game time, as, how the public loves to just buy in. Oh, the A's are for real. I'm kind of with Steve there, unless it's quality pitching. What's so real about the A's? Hop below in the comments and let us know your thoughts. So we already had Tyler hopping in saying he was looking at St. Louis in the first 5. He saw all he needed to see from Sonny in his last outing. If you're tuning in here live, or if you're watching on the rewatch, folks, hit that like button. It's a great way to show your appreciation for these guys on a daily basis, dropping you the info that you know and love. Speaking of people hopping in the comments, guys, let's get to some of these. Our man Raven Ron holding things down there in BMO. It's just the obligatory play that he does every single show. He'll hop in the comments and he'll hop below and say, O's money line. Orioles on the money line is the thought there for our man Raven Ron. Looks like the market kind of disagrees. Trig, Steve, you guys got anything in this one? I'll start with you, Trig. Any thoughts here on the O's game?
Yeah, I do. I was looking for a way to kind of play Lewis Varland, who's going to make the start Louis Varland for the Twins. So I kind of had this circled as a spot to potentially take the Twins. For that reason, I ended up, his last start was a little bit deceiving. I was on the wrong side there. I had Twins plus 1.5, and he sort of cruised through the earlier innings and got blown up in what were like 2, innings that the Dodgers they went 3 runs and 3 runs and like capitalized on like the only 2 scoring chances they had in the game. So you look back in hindsight, 6 runs on 7 hits is so harsh because the Dodgers didn't do a single thing the rest of the game. But that's what the Dodgers do, right? They get a couple guys on and they capitalize every single time. So I thought that his numbers are a little bit overstated for that reason. That being said, like, I'm just not in a rush to really bet against the Orioles. The team is so loaded with young talent that I don't think anyone fully knows the upside of this Orioles team from a run scoring lineup perspective. Where I think the Orioles may be, weak is in the pitching department. So would I play against Cole Irvin? Yeah, of course. Like that, I have no problem doing. So for that, from that angle, I lean toward the Twins. But for me, the Orioles, I'm going to need a little bit better of a setup to want to step in with a client play against them. So I lean Twins, but man, he's not, Raven Ron's not wrong to just want to keep coming back to the Orioles, because that is a special group they have there, which extends down to Norfolk. There's 4 more players at Norfolk that are MLB ready. There's just not a spot for them.
Yeah, I mean, it opened at 150. We've seen it only tick down against the O's here. So if you do like the O's, wait a little bit, because it's looking like all Minnesota action. Steve, it's also looking like a lot of over action. This one painted at 9. You heard him talking about, maybe some potential woes. Any thoughts here on the total here?
Yeah, I got the Orioles hat in the background there. If you look closely, see if you can name that other hat. It is a college hat. It should not be too difficult for our viewers who watch college basketball now watch the baseball show. But the Orioles are an interesting team. As Adam said, Norfolk is loaded. They won the AAA championship last year with guys that weren't even on the Orioles, and the Orioles made the playoffs with the other guys. So loaded future here for Baltimore. They were a bottom feeder for several years. Not exactly a team you want to play against. The money move is interesting because it really comes down to how Varland pitches, and that affects the total as well, like you asked, because this is a guy in his 2 outings this year has a 9 ERA, a 2.0 whip, awful. In fact, if you go back to his last 3 starts last year, were in June before they pulled him out of the rotation. He's given up 26 runs in his last 24 innings pitched over 5 starts since last June. With that said, though, in the minors, he was pretty good. He had a 2.96 ERA, a 1.2 whip. It just does not transfer to the majors, so I need to see something from him first before I'm backing him. I don't quite understand this money move. The Orioles are a team that are off to a little bit of a slow start this year at 9-6. And offensively, they've been dicey at times, but they're still averaging 5.5 runs a game. And I think there's plenty of firepower there. So, yeah, Baltimore over probably be my preference.
Yeah, and Ferg Wop watching us here on the Instagram feed. That's right, we're on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, wherever you want to watch us, you can find us. He's saying all unders today, looking towards all the unders this evening. Do you guys ever subscribe? And it ties in well because on a specific note, Eric DeLong's asking this Cincy and Seattle game over or under, sitting at a 7 is a number that he's looking at, maybe playing an alt line. He said let's taco about it. But do you guys ever feel like, I feel like it's definitely a public sentiment, or some of these other streams where you hear where it's an under day today, boys, wind blowing in. Like, when you look at an entire card, you can't just say tonight's an under, correct? You guys think that's kind of gets a little bit overplayed by some talking heads, right? Or is there ever nights that you're like, kind of feels like an under night across the MLB? Any thoughts on that, either of you guys?
I've never once looked at it like that, or thought that, or think there's any real merit to that. However, I do think there's a way to play it. Like, most books offer that grand salami type bet. Like, if you collectively look at the games and think that there's going to be more overs than unders, I would look for that play, right? Like, you can play. It gets ruined if there's a rain out, but I will throw out one. He said he's looking at unders. If you want the full breakdown of this game, I did this on WagerTalk today, but I didn't really talk about the total. But Edward Cabrera is going to make the start for Miami in place of AJ Puck, who I thought Miami was just moving to the bullpen, which I do think is the long-term plan, but I guess he's sick or he's getting scratched with an illness. So Cabrera, though, is a far superior starter to Puck right now. And I don't think that that's fully reflected in the line. It's the only reason that the Giants did not make my client card, is because Cabrera is just a much better starter. So if you want to translate that toward the total, I definitely have a lean toward the under in this game. I thought Cabrera looked great for Jacksonville last week. It was his third rehab start. I don't think there's any pitch count. I think he threw a full start, 6 innings for AAA Jacksonville. So Miami, in my opinion, pretty big starting pitching upgrade for this game, going from Cabrera or Puck to Cabrera, and definitely not reflected in the number, which I think, kind of keeps me off of my, wanting to play the Giants, but definitely makes me lean toward the under, since Harrison for San Francisco is an absolute stud.
Yeah, and that's a great point by Trig. A lot of these definitely more public books especially are going to be having posted up there, hey, total runs in all games. So if you feel like it's an under night, if you just feel it down there in the plums, you can always head on over and try and pick that whole total game. So Steve, he was talking about that total. Any thoughts for you, as Eric DeLong was asking, hey, I might even alt line this thing down or up. Any thoughts on that one, Steve? Cincinnati and Seattle.
I was going to say, if we know if it's going to be all unders, it's the best bet in the history of sports. You just play the grand salami under. You don't even have to get them all under. But then I was thinking, Dan, first of all, the Red Sox game is already finished, so there might not be a grand salami anymore because one game has already started. So they'd have to do the 14 night games. By the way, that was a 6-0 under, so good call there. We do have some thunderstorms. I got a severe weather alert here in Virginia. It's the hottest day of the year so far. It's in the 80s, and it covers all of Virginia up to D.C., Maryland. That Baltimore game might be in it as well. So keep an eye on the East Coast, maybe for some thunderstorms. That could also, like you said, give us a rain out and scratch it. As far as any sharp money moves, one that's coming, actually lighten up the WagerTalk live odds screen right now. A little bit of money at some of the sharper books that I respect on the under in that late game on the interleague card between Cincinnati and Seattle. And, of course, Seattle, once again, a miserable offensive team at home. It's been a pitcher-friendly park for years. Mariners averaging 2.5 runs, 193 batting average at home this year. But they've had a super strong bullpen. Cincinnati's very, very explosive offense. In fact, they're averaging almost 7 runs a game on the road, but they're only batting .233 on the road. Something's got to give. And my line of thought is batting average wins out over 162 games. When you're not putting the ball in play, you're not going to continue to average 7 runs. And they've only had 5 home runs in 6 road games. So the 6.8 runs averaged on a .233 average with only 5 home runs in 6 road games is a little fishy. So it looks like we're seeing some sharp money on the under in that Cincinnati-Seattle game, and I would agree with that move. It's on that key number of 7 right now.
That's Steve Merril. Also joining us, Adam Trigger. It is the final day to get the special where you can get 37 days of action for under $650 a day. That's right. It expires at midnight. You can get 30-day all access at a huge discount, $159 or saving $159, excuse me. And then when you lock that in, you're going to get 7 days free. That's $100 value that you'll be getting free. So 37 days of action, all access from your favorite capper, $645 a day. It's expiring at midnight, so hop on board. You know, Steve's always talking about taking a potential long-term approach. That's a great way, a great savings to lock in and ride with these guys as we head on into the NBA playoffs, MLB in full swing. Hey, we got some NHL cappers doing pretty darn good on the site as well. You can lock anyone that you want in. WT.buzz/deals has all of the details there. Guys, let's keep rolling with the chat, getting great questions here on a nice slate on a Monday. We love when we're chopping it up with you. Hop below in the comments if you have some best bets or if you have some games you'd like the experts here to touch on. Swing back to Anthony Thornhill. Of course, if I'm on here, Steve, we have to bring up the Phillies. Anthony Thornhill saying Phillies run line is the play for him. Any thoughts as they're taking on Colorado tonight? Nola on the mound. So, folks, I always tell you when Nola's on the mound, get ready for some mid-inning, maybe live bet overs in specific innings. You know, he's going to get pieced at some point. He's taking on Colorado tonight. It looks like Quantrill is going to be on the mound there. Thoughts in this one as Thornhill saying it, lay it with my Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, I was going to say, Dan, I mean, why are you asking me this? This should be your segment right now. It's your Phillies, like you just said. I did want to say, by the way, I think it was maybe Eric in the chat that said
with the Phillies. I'll tell you.
Yeah, well, exactly. And nor should you with anybody. Yeah, first of all, if you're going to play the Phillies, you get it down to -1.5, -130 on the run line. I fully agree with that.
Yeah.
I talked about Seattle being a bad offensive team at home. Keep in mind with Colorado, you got to look at road numbers only. Their offensive numbers in the altitude are doubled, basically. So that's something to keep an eye on. And over the last few seasons, Colorado's been as bad offensively in the league as anybody. So this should be a good series in general for your Phillies. And I don't think they overlooked the Rockies. Rockies went in, Toronto this past week, and it smoked them in game 1, and they got smoked in games 2 and 3. Adam mentioned the Blue Jays tonight. I had a best bet on the Blue Jays yesterday for my clients, and I used that run line, took it down to a very reasonable price. So that would be my recommendation. And I didn't want to bring this up earlier, but since you brought the Phillies up, I think it was Eric in the chat saying like he liked what he saw from Sonny Gray for the Cardinals. And that's another reason I do like the Cardinals tonight of the A's. He missed his first start from the hamstring injury in the spring training, but he looked very strong in his debut last Tuesday. And I cashed a under 7.5 in that game, an easy 3-0 shutout winner. And oh yeah, that just happened to be your Phillies, as I'm sure you remember. But I like the Phillies tonight.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Here for you. Actually, go ahead, Trig.
Oh, go ahead. No, I don't have much to say on it other than like.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, all you, Trig.
Somebody go ahead. God damn it, come on now.
Someone's got to go. I'll go. I was just gonna say that the Phillies remind me of the Jays in the respect that they opened with the Braves. They then had to play a tough Reds team. They then went on the road for Nationals and Cardinals, and like the Pirates, I'll give them credit. Like that was a really competitive series. So, you know, the Phillies might be a little undervalued based on like some of the scheduling dynamics, but they got Colorado and then the White Sox coming up back to back. So, you know, unfortunately, you're not getting much value here with the Phillies, but I could see this being a stretch where they start to win some games.
Yeah, I was just going to say that our man behind the scenes, James Bunting, who works on the Gold Sheet, he dropped actually a sheet to us in our production Slack, just breaking down different angles on this game, different ways to bet it. It's the MLB stat sheet that'll be being shared lately or daily. You can check that out, WT.buzz/GS. But as far as these Phillies hitters against Quantrill, 234, 20.4% strikeout rate, a 3.39 weighted on base average. We had someone in the chat saying Schwarber over the half run. Schwarber 3 for 11 against Quantrill, 5 strikeouts, 3 home runs. So if he does get it done, it's probably going to be from the long ball, as we know from Schwarber. For what it's worth, Colorado .306 against Nola in 106 plate appearances, 27.4% strikeout rate, and a .382 weighted on base average. Charlie Blackmon, 4 doubles, 2 home runs in his at bat appearances against Nola. So there's some potential player prop stats for you if you want to check those out. Tyler saying, I can't touch this Philly game, no edge. I kind of feel the same way. I want to see how game 1 in the series plays out in that one. Back here to the comments, though, guys. One of the games that you were talking about, you guys were on Wager Talk today earlier, talking about that Rays game, and we had someone in the comments asking about what do you think about the Rays and the Mets game. So we'll start with the Rays game, Adam. This was one that you were breaking down. Any thoughts here?
Yeah, I could only look to play against the Rays. Unfortunately, I was wrong to do so this past weekend, or at least I picked the wrong times to do it. Took a couple losses with the Giants, which was like my only real blemish of last week was trying to bet against the Rays, again with the Giants this past weekend. I still think that their roster is lacking. I think that they're still priced as sort of like a top option, and but they have inferior talent. They don't have quite the bullpen depth they've had in years past. You get outside of like Yandy Diaz and Rosarena at the top of that order, it's not pretty, like 4, 5 through 9. But they managed to score some runs against the Giants yesterday. So now that they're priced minus 165, like I'm not in love with the Angels earlier, but I do see some value for the Angels there. So it would have to be Angels or pass for me in that one.
Angels or pass. That's the thought from our man, Adam Trigger. Steve, you wanted to talk about this Mets game. It's the Pirates and the Mets. Pirates maybe cooled off a bit here, and maybe the Mets have found a little bit of something in these past few games. It looks like we're seeing some money going towards the Metropolitans this evening. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't quite cool off enough, and they came from behind to beat your Phillies 9-2 yesterday. So there was a 2-2 split.
I tried to gloss
Pittsburgh,
over
by the
that,
way.
Steve.
Well, here's what's crazy. And look, at least you've got some winning championship seasons in recent history in Pennsylvania there, because Pittsburgh, to put in perspective how bad they've been, this is the best start they've had this century, 11-5. 11-5 is their first best 16-game start this century, 24 years into the century. So we've seen Pittsburgh do this. By the way, last year they were 9-7 after Game 16. And Game 17, starting tonight, they won 11 out of 12. And that's when they went on that monster run to get to 20-8. And everyone's saying, oh, maybe Pittsburgh's turned the corner. Well, what did they do after that? They went 1-11. So they went 11-1 and then 1-11. So, yes, they could continue this a little bit longer, but I think it starts to come to an end. The writing appears to be on the wall. They've had single-digit hits now in 4 of their last 5 games. 4 of their last 5. But the Mets are the team I want to talk about as well, because New York started 0-5 this season, 5 straight losses. I think they scored like 11 total runs in those 5 games. No offense whatsoever. Now, granted, they only put up a 2-1 win against Kansas City yesterday. Only had 8 hits, but they'd had double-digit hits in 4 of their previous 5. They've had 9 hits or more in their other 6 games over the last 7, and they've gone 7-3 straight up still their last 10 since that 0-5 start. So I do think we have 2 teams starting to head opposite direction, yet the line is only like minus 120 with New York at home. Public dog indicator. I do see the public on Pittsburgh in this game as well. So definitely some things I like about the Mets. I actually did a standalone video on this game as well. So if you like a 5 to 6 minute deep dive with some of those thoughts I just gave you, check that out afterwards here on Wager Talk TV for free. Hit subscribe, hit the bell for instant alerts when those free plays go up each and every day here on the channel.
Yeah, it's a great suggestion of making sure that you hit that subscribe button, and also while you're down there chopping it up with us here in the chat, whether you're watching live on the rewatch, throw that like button. We would greatly appreciate if you hit that little thumbs up. We would greatly appreciate that, guys. Man, it's like the Undertaker showing up at WrestleMania. Yes, cash the WrestleMania reference here on a Monday, as Joe Ross is going to be on the mound here tonight as the Milwaukee Brewers are looking to bounce back. They're going to be facing off against Musgrove, and on the Instagram feed, IlSo1 is asking, do we like the Brewers against Musgrove at home? Trig, what do you think about this one?
So I lean toward the Padres, just like without the like context of like in the matchup, I would lean Padres, but there's circumstance you have to take into consideration. One, Padres played on Sunday night. That's typically, I think that's why the market wants to fade them a little bit. They won the game, right? So they come off of, not only did they play last night, but they took 2 of 3 from the Dodgers, which is a pretty big accomplishment for anyone, including the Padres. So to kind of have it to turn around and play what many consider to be a pretty strong Brewers team, I think that's probably why the market's doing what it's doing. That being said, like I still have, I'm not buying this start from the Brewers. Like I do think that they could be a respectable team, but I don't think they're going to be like far and away the best team in the NL Central. So I could only play against the Brewers right now. I'd actually go now where it is, like I'd actually go against the move and take the plus money with the Padres, because I think this is flipped to the Brewers being a favorite, which I just don't disagree with. Now, I'm not going to bet that, but if I was going to get involved in this game at this point, Padres are pass for me.
Yeah, it's crazy that you've seen that much money come in the market. That as Trig said, you've seen this line flip here. Maybe, Steve, any thoughts? Is that just giving you a little bit of a discount on the Padres here, or is there something to this major steamer? Is it as simple as they played on Sunday night? Let's use the age-old adage that we fade them here on Monday. Any thoughts on that one before we get going and hearing some best bets?
Well, this game's an excellent game to bring up a big picture topic here about baseball. You know, unlike the point spread sports in football and basketball, yes, we've lost a lot of line value. And Adam's saying he'd lean San Diego just because there's value now. The problem is, as he knows, and that's why he's probably staying off the game, like he said, is that it doesn't matter if your team wins. You know, in basketball, if it moves 4 or 5 points, you could still, lose the game, win the bet because of the line change. Here, Milwaukee's still just a small favorite. It is a great spot for them, although they are returning home, no rest off of travel. But it just looks like an awful spot for San Diego. So the only way I could play this game is Milwaukee because of the situation. I do think there'll be a hangover after the Padres played Sunday night. And the fact that they beat the arch rival Dodgers, the big boy in their state and their division, this has letdown written all over it. And if you look at the numbers for the season, Milwaukee still averages more runs, has a better bullpen ERA, and they're at home. But Adam's right. This line is out of whack. Very rarely are the odds makers off by 50 cents from the opener. So this is the reason I'm passing the game, because I like the spot for Milwaukee, but there's no longer value.
Yeah, great breakdown there and great big picture stuff. A little great suggestion there from our man Steve Merril, and check him out over at wt.buzz/SM. Last one here, gentlemen, and then we'll get into best bets. I do have to come right back to you, Steve, because Merril is on the mound, but he has 2 L's. Somebody in the chat was saying Merril. Any thoughts on Merril?
It's not a real
tonight?
Merril. That's a fake Merril.
Fake Merril. That's what I'm saying. We got
L's.
the real.
Yeah.
We got the real Steve Merril. Yeah, you can take all those L's. That's what we only need one for the few that Steve will be dropping. But any thoughts? He says, I'm looking to take the D-backs today. Merril on Merril crime. How are you breaking down this one, Steve?
Well, first of all, Steve was merry yesterday because I went 3-0. There were no L's, so it was merry. Steve was very merry at 3-0 sweep yesterday. First of all, Merrill Kelly, he's got a last name for a first name spelled incorrectly, damn it. And then his first name is his last name. But I do like Merrill Kelly. Yeah. He's actually a decent pitcher. And this D-backs team is a team a lot of people thought were going to regress this season. And we talked about the Padres playing well, the Dodgers, of course. Rockies are awful. Giants might be as well. But Arizona's still making some noise after last year. And, last year the Rangers, Marlins, and D-backs all had monster seasons compared to what they've been doing. And all 3 were teams I mentioned preseason last year. The rule changes would help them in different ways. The shift, the bigger bases. Arizona was a good running team. They had a great left-handed rookie hitter. He obviously benefited from not facing the shift as well. Everyone's waiting for Arizona to come back down to earth, but they haven't done so yet. And baseball is a momentum sport. And as long as they continue to play competitive baseball, I'd be careful looking to fade them. With that said, they're still just 8-8 straight up. But they are putting the ball in play. They're averaging 5.5 runs a game. Offensively, other than Coors Field, this is always a very hitter-friendly park, and they are putting up over 6 runs a game at home. Chicago, meanwhile, just a 207 batting average on the road. So we'll see if this hitter-friendly park can get Chicago's offense healthy. And the over-under actually opened 9 under. It's now 8.5 over in some spots. Others have 9. Another big picture thing here, regardless of which side you like on the total, you want to play under 9 or you play over 8.5, because that's a very key number. I would personally lean over 8.5 minus 120 as my option.
Lean there for our man Steve Merril, the true Merril, getting you the breakdown there. Throw that like button for our man Steve Merril, and also Adam Trigger as well, who's got a best bet coming your way. Right, dropped a 4% play for the folks earlier in the show in that Blue Jays and Yankees game. Give him a like for that alone. But let's talk about a game where both teams coming off series wins, although the Braves in this case, they had to grind out the series to get the win against the Marlins. Recalling Darius Vines from AAA tonight for tonight's start. How are you looking to bet the Braves as they're taking on the Astros?
Yeah, so real quick, before I get into the breakdown of this game, I do have a 5% play in the MLB tonight, and anything I add, like any client plays I have, I'm going to put on that package. So this might be one. I'm just not sure yet. Like, I could end up with a pretty big card tonight. There's quite a bit I like. So 2 plays locked in right now. Could have additional ones. They'll all go on that 5% package, and this one might be one of them. We'll see. The way I am looking in this game is the Astros. So can't remember if it was this show or Wager Talk today last week. I know I was with Steve, though, somewhere. And we talked about Arrighetti making his debut. And I said that, I've watched this guy a lot in the minors. I think he has great stuff from a strikeout perspective, but he's a little bit wild, and he puts guys on base. I thought the Royals might make him pay for that. And if you look at the stat line, they absolutely did. But I think it's a little bit overstated. Arrighetti was really good for the first 2 innings of that game, and then he just got as unlucky as you can get from a standpoint where it was like seeing eye single after seeing eye single after soft base hit, and suddenly the Royals had 7 runs. So, like, very unfair to like judge him and say his major league debut was like this horrific bust, because again, I think it was like, it looks like he got rocked in the stat sheet, and that just wasn't the case. Like, the stuff looked good. His command was pretty good of the zone, especially from a strike and balls perspective. Like, in the minors, that's where he's gotten in trouble. Not so much getting knocked around, but he'll walk guys because he lives on the edges, and his MO is striking batters out. So if he's on, the Braves will struggle with that. Like, if he's on, no one on the Braves has seen him, and his strikeout stuff is at its ceiling, like, in a big league rotation type caliber, pitches. So, I like Arrighetti to bounce back here for a couple of for that reason, and the fact he was on the road at Kansas City. Now he gets to come back and pitch at home. The Astros have big time issues with injuries in the rotation, but the fact that they're giving him the vote of confidence and they're going to send him back out there 5 days later, I think it's going to give him confidence. And again, I think if he's throwing strikes, even the Braves, as good as they are hitting the ball, might have trouble with him. That's the other thing that comes into this. Like, it's been well documented that the Braves are like the top offensive team in the league. They're leading in many offensive metrics. They're the number 1 team in WRC plus, which is an offensive metric that, a lot of handicappers will use to really gauge offensive success. Number 2 in that metric is the Astros. And I don't think the Astros are getting talked about at all because they've lost so many games because their pitching is just such a disaster. But once the Astros pitching comes around a little bit, I think you're going to see this team start to surge to be, what many expect them to be, what they've been the past few years. Like, it's only a matter of time before the Astros start to string together games. And if you look at it like that, it's 2 teams, basically both have like minor league call-ups on the mound, but one team is at home and one team is getting plus money or is even money, and that's the Astros. So, for that reason, I like the Astros. On the other side, Darius Vines for the Braves. Listen, the Braves right now, their AAA, their organization has so much pitching that this is just like an audition to see who might replace Spencer Strider long term. On Thursday, they brought up Alan Winans. It didn't go as well. So they're just going to keep giving guys a shot. Like, right now at AAA, like Bryce Elder's at AAA right now. He was an all-star last year. They didn't even bring him up for this start. They've got A.J. Smith-Shawver, Taylor Widener, Huskar Ynoa, Dylan Dodd. Ian Anderson's going to be coming back soon from Tommy John surgery. You can't even get into their AAA rotation. That's how much pitching they have down there. So this is just, they're going to give Vines a shot. If it works, maybe he gets another start. If not, he's going back to AAA. I just think that, he's got some good strikeout stuff as well. He made 2 good starts last year, but he's not the superior of these two starting pitchers, in my opinion. And now he's sort of in the spot Arrighetti was in last week, where he's on the road, called up, making his season debut against a really good Astros offense. So for me here, I just think Arrighetti's in the better position to succeed at home. And, the Braves kind of had a crazy weekend. They stared losing 2 of 3 in the face to the Marlins, kind of got, I don't know if I want to say lucky, but they pulled it out of a hat yesterday to win the series. Now they've got to turn around. Tough game in Houston. I lean toward the Astros, and I guess within the next hour or two, I'll decide if it lands on my client card. But a pretty strong lean toward Houston to me here.
Pulled it out of a hat or pulled it out of their ass. Not sure which one it was, but hey, they got the series win here, gentlemen, and that's all that mattered for them. That's the best bet for our man Trig. He's taking the plus money with the Stros over the Braves. Hop below in the comments. Let us know if you agree or if you disagree. He's got a 5% play rocking tonight. Check that out over at his page. You can buy that play, or you can get over 30 days of action, get 37 to be exact, for under $650 a day. So you can grab the one play, or you can ride with Trig for over a month. Find out details over at his page, wt.buzz/AT. That same deal is rocking for my man Steve Merril over at his page, wt.buzz/SM. Steve, let the folks know what you have up tonight, and let us know how we're betting this Tigers and Rangers game. It's what can we call it? A revenge game for Lorenzen? He was an all-star for the Tigers last year, and now he makes his season debut finally off rehab against them and for the Rangers. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, very interesting situation. I'm going to get to a free play in just a moment for baseball. Quick reminder, the NBA playoffs start tomorrow on Tuesday. I'll be back at 4:15 Eastern live here for the NBA playoff preview show. Of course, it's archived here on WagerTalk TV, and I am number one all-time in the history of WagerTalk.com. Units won in the NBA, sides and totals combined. And, guess what? Number one again this season, sides and totals combined in the NBA. Last year, 2023, I went 103-63 in the NBA. That included going 29-17 in the postseason. This is a great time of year to make money, not just with baseball, but the NBA as well. I'm on a 5-1 best bet run the last 4 nights. I'm very selective, 1 to 2 plays a day. And I've got one strong baseball best bet tonight, also a bonus free play. But this is the last chance tonight to get 30 days at a discounted price, and then you get another 7 included. The 30-day package is already discounted, and we're including 7 more days for free. Check that out. No promo code needed. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. Game that was just a bit outside for making the cut is the Detroit Tigers tonight, and we've seen some heavy money coming on. They opened as a dog overnight, plus 105. Now they're a minus 120 favorite. We talked about how the Padres-Brewers game, we've seen a huge money move. San Diego getting bet against after their winning on Sunday night against the Dodgers. Well, you can make the same argument here. This is a flat spot for Texas for a couple reasons. The main reason being that they're coming off the high-profile series against the Houston Astros, but they just lost the last 2 in a row after a 12-8 win. They dominated that game Friday night, had a 12-3 lead, gave up 5 runs late, meaningless runs. Well, whatever. They got outscored 17-7 the 2 games after that on Saturday, Sunday. And I do think that lingers tonight. This is a Texas team that's now lost 6 of their last 8 games. Detroit has a better record overall. They're off to a decent 9-6 start. And the Tigers have the much better bullpen. 1.9 ERA this year, 58 innings. The Rangers, meanwhile, a 5.2 ERA, including an 8.8 ERA on the road. Detroit's an underrated team, and the Lorenzen factor is interesting. He's going against his former team, but he only played half a season with them. Hey, you want a little bit of outside-the-box thinking? Maybe Jake Rogers, the catcher from last season, he's playing tonight. Take him over half a hit, minus 155, over half a total base, minus 155. He should feel pretty comfortable seeing Lorenzen throw at him. He did that in the bullpen and in games last year. But I like the Tigers, and I like Jake Rogers props over as well.
Man, I love that sneaky play right there. That's a great one that maybe, you see with the price, somebody found it, but definitely not something that probably someone thinks about. Former catchers against their former pitchers. Yep. I love that angle. That's Steve Merril. 1L, and like we said, that deal good for him as well until midnight. 37 days of action for under $650 a day. Folks, on the way out, make sure you hit that like button. And as Steve said earlier, if we didn't touch upon one of the games that you wanted to hear on, check out the links in the description below. We're dropping single game videos all the time here at WagerTalk TV. And actually in this description, you can find some of the other MLB action. And if you're watching us on the rewatch here, you don't even have to scroll down. You can actually click the video on your screen right this second to continue getting all the info you need to bet all the sports you love. Big thanks to Steve. Big thanks to Adam. I've been Dan Alexander, and we'll see you tomorrow. Keep cashing those tickets. Best of luck until then, everyone.